Well, hello and welcome to a tidbit of information from Dr. Childress. Today, I want to talk about applying Kohutian self psychology to the family relationships that are fractured around child custody. Um, Kohutian psychology, developed by Heinz Kohut, is probably the dominant paradigm in psychoanalytic psychotherapy in the world of psychoanalysis that started with Freud and it developed through ego psychologists and object relations, and then has developed or emerged into Heinz Kohut object relations and self psychology. And I'm going to be applying a couple of the constructs out of Kohutian self psychology about mirroring and idealization to the fractured family relationships that we have in the family courts. So, the mirroring and idealization are responsible for the psychological development of a sense of value and a sense of identity, um, gender based identity with the child. And Kohutian self psychology, everything in psychoanalysis started with Sigmund Freud. And he came up with this idea that we were kind of divided into our instincts, the id that drove us into the world and drove our motivations, and then restrictions that the world put on us, the super ego. And in the middle, we kind of work things out. That's our ego to kind of resolve our instincts versus our social restrictions. But that changed, and there was sort of a revolution in thinking first with the object relations people. Freud looked at everything as coming from a drive, the instinctual drives. The object relations people said, no, 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 it's about love. We are motivated for the other person and to achieve love with the other person, and that's they call in analysis they call the other person an object, because it's sort of an internalized other person. It's who we believe they are. There are ideas about that other person rather than the actual person. So they're called an object. And so it's object relations. It's about love. John Bowlby in attachment is out of the object relations school. And then Kohut emerged a little bit further. He took object relations and said it's not about drive motivations or even about external love motivations. This Our internal being is organized around a sense of self. And so it's a self organization and it's a coherent sense of self. And then he identified specific features that parents do in their children with their children called self object functions. They serve certain functions for their child's self development, mirroring, idealization, and twinship that are then internalized into the child's self structure. And then out of Kohut, then came Tronick and the still face studies, Stern, early child mental health, Siegel, all of the early childhood mental health people are in the psychoanalytic school, and they would be in agreement with Kohut, but more into self psychology and early childhood. Kohut is an adult analyst, but all the ideas are in sync in their forming within the psychoanalytic school. And what's the psychoanalytic school has to do with is meaning, how we construct meaning about situations. Behavioral school is just changing our behavior, stimulus response. Humanistic existential school is about self actualization and growth. The family systems is about patterns of family interactions and relationships. But psychoanalysis in that school is seeking to understand our constructions of meaning. And a lot of those come from our past childhood relationships, where we construct a meaning that we then impose upon our perception of the world. And psychoanalysis seeks to kind of open that up so we can make a better contact with actual reality as opposed to our meanings that and patterns from our childhood kind of stuff. And the current school of psychoanalysis, the dominant school, is Kohutian Self Psychology. Uh, so let's see. So Kohut identifies three self-object functions that are served by parents relative to their children. Mirroring is huge. It's one of the big ones we use a lot, apply a lot in early childhood mental health. And what mirroring is, let me pull this down for a second. What mirroring is that the parent serves as a mirror for the child's self identity, their sense of value. So the child looks in the face of the parent and sees a mirror for who they are. And so if the parent has like a grumpy face, that's the face the child sees. That's who the child is somebody who creates that parent. And what we want is we want the child to receive this wonderful, broad, happy face. I'm so happy to be with you. So the child looks up in the face of the parent and goes, "Is that me? Is that me? Oh my goodness, that's wonderful." And that's the mirroring value of a self-object function. Then there's like frustrations, is minor uh, frustrations that take place, healthy frustrations that help the child internalize that sense of self-value to where it's no longer requires the parent to serve that function. The child can take that role on for themselves. They've internalized that mirror of who they are. The second function is idealization. And this is an important role for identity, to be able to look up to the parent and idealize who they are and then incorporate that into the child's self structure and the child's own regulatory capacity, that sense of confidence, that sense of authority, that sense of being protected and safe in the world. The final one is a twinship, and that has to do with empathy, that I belong to the human community and that my experience is capable of being known by other people. And so that's the damaged empathy we have here, that that the child's experience is not capable of being understood. At least the child doesn't believe that, by other people, by the targeted parent. So what I'm going to do though is I'm going to apply the ideas of the mirroring and the idealization and the damage to those, to the four types of gender-based relationship in the family. And so there are four types of relationship, and they depend on the gender of the parent and gender of the child. And when we're talking psychoanalytic kinds of ideas and constructs, this is about the internal psychological health of the child. So if everybody's worried about what's happening in terms of the healthy development of the child internally psychologically, we're talking psychoanalytic domain, and then we're talking Heinz Kohut. And he's written extensively on healthy narcissism. And oh my God, we got unhealthy narcissism. If you're not applying Heinz Kohut as a mental health professional, if you don't know him, again, you're just lazy. And they are. But this is Heinz Kohut, and the psychoanalytic field is going to give us the internal view on what's happening psychologically, developmentally for the child. And there's domains, there's gender-based domains, and they depend on the gender of the parent and gender of the child, creating four types of relationship. Two are cross-gender bonds. Those are the high affection bonds. So that's the mother-son and father-daughter bonds. Those are, yeah, super high affection, high on the mirroring quality. Then we have two same gender bonds. These are the identity bonds and the values bond. And that's the mother daughter and father son. And these are going to be the idealization bonds, looking up and getting a sense of identity about idealizing that same gender parent. Now, in the family court conflict, what we have are then four types of damage to those uh, relationship bonds. The cross gender, the two types of cross gender damage is first is when the father and the daughter form an alliance against the mother, and that's the incest pattern. So you can see that up at top. The father and the daughter are in Mnuchin's diagram. You can see the cutoff from the mother. And that's a damaged idealization between the daughter and the mother. We want the daughter to look up to her mother and to bond into that relationship. The daughter is going to be the future mother of her own children. And a lot of that patterning about the mother, healthy mother daughter bond and healthy mother child bond is coming in this idealization of her own relationship with her own mother that will then be internalized. And that's getting devastated in this particular pattern. Of concern, though, is that a special father-daughter relationship that excludes the mother is the incest pattern, but it's psychological incest. Now I want to be clear here to everybody that I'm not saying there's current incest in the family court situation. It's a ripple. It's a pattern coming from a generation or two before, maybe with moms in the situation, maybe with the father's own mother or something. I'm not saying the current situation is incestuous. What I'm saying is that pattern is the incest pattern. That's a special relationship between the father and the daughter that excludes the mother. And that's going to have psychological implications for the daughter. Because in this family of loyalties and stuff, the daughter is replacing the mother in the father's special affection. And that's just problematic. Psychologically, it's a little creepy. And we want to keep the daughter out of that situation. We want a healthy mother daughter bond. We love lots of affection from the father. Absolutely. We just want the mother to kind of be in there as well, bonded with the daughter to kind of psychologically balance things out. Then the other cross gender relationship is the mother son against the father. And that's the same sort of incestuous Oedipal pattern this time, where we have damaged idealization. We want the son looking up to his father and developing that sense of identity and what it means to be a man and just a whole bunch of stuff out of the father son relationship that he can't get from the mother son. That's a different quality. That's a different thing. That's the high affection bond. Mother son, father son is different. That's the idealization and the identity bond. And in this case, the son is being seduced, recruited to be the mother's warrior or champion in her fight against the father to win the mother's special affection again. So again, that's the Oedipal pattern. And it's devastating psychologically to the child to put them in a position where they are their mother's warrior and um, champion against the child's own father. So in these high affection cross gender bonds, we always want high affection on that cross gender parent child bond. That's so we want a lot of mirroring. We want that daughter to look in her dad's face and see, oh my goodness, is that me? Oh, I'm just such a wonderful human. And we also want the balancing influence of the same gender parent child bond. So we want that daughter to have a great relationship with her dad and a great relationship, balancing relationship with her mother, where she's not like in replacing the mom in the dad's affections kind of stuff, especially after divorce. So that's we just moms and dads are different, and we just want both in the life of the child to create that healthy psychological development for the child. Now, switching over to the same gender alliances, Now we're going to get damage to the mirroring because it's going to be damage to the cross-gender high affection bond. So the first type here, we have the mother and the daughter against the father, which is going to be damage to the love value of the child. So you can see the mother and daughter up there on top, and it's now the father-daughter high affection bond that's being damaged. And so no affection or that mirroring from Kohut that we want to help develop that sense of self-value and in the self structure of the child, there's no affection being received by the daughter on the high affection cross-gender bond. That's damaging her sense of self-love, and sense of love and value. The yeah, the we I'm not as concerned about the child loving the parent, as I am about the child feeling loved by the parent. And so when we have this type of damage on the high affection bond, the cross gender bond, the child isn't feeling loved by that high affection bond parent. That's just devastating to their mirroring of sense of who they are. And that's why at Tronic, we have to fix it. It's all about the repair of these relationships. We never leave these breached attachment bonds. It's just devastating psychologically, whether you apply attachment or whether you apply Kohut and self-structure development of the child is devastating. And moms are not replaceable by dads, and dads are not replaceable by moms to their sons and daughters. We do different things. We serve different functions for our sons and daughters. The other type of same gender damage is the father and the son against the mother. And so again, this is damage to the love value of the son, because he's being deprived of that mother's mirroring, the mother's love. He doesn't believe his own mother loves him. Oh my goodness, that's so devastating to this young boy. And so there's no cross-gender affection again, that mirroring from Kohut, where the son looks in the face of his mother and she's just beaming with pride and joy, and he just swells up with this wonderful sense of being loved. That's absent. It's like anorexia in the love and bonding system. So that's getting devastated, which is damaging his sense of love value. The other feature about this particular pattern is when this there's a high spousal abuse concern in this particular pattern for weaponization of the child by a dark triad or a dark tetrad father. And the reason for that is the dark triad is narcissistic, psychopathic, and Machiavellian manipulation. If we add sadism to that, we get the dark tetrad. And so these are the spouse abuse pathologies, psychopathic, narcissistic, sadistic. And when we have one of these dark triad or dark tetrad fathers who's weaponizing a son as a weapon of spousal abuse, we get a lot of kind of high violence tone within the family. So this is a type of family or family pattern where we might see a symptom feature of the mother making phone calls to the police for protection from her adolescent son because he's making some sort of threats or something. This is a pattern that arises from when a dark triad or dark tetrad parent weaponizes the son, particularly an adolescent son, against the mother. There's high spousal abuse kind of feel to this. Now, the dad in this situation, the pathological dad, can also weaponize the daughter. So the other, cross-gender pattern against the mother, and so you'll see a high anger in the mother-daughter bond, where the daughter is clearly kind of being weaponized as a spousal abuse issue. And important to understand, this pathology is a spousal abuse pathology at its core. So the pathological parent is weaponizing the child into this as weapon of spousal emotional and psychological abuse. And in doing that, they're creating this persecutory delusion and false attachment pathology, and they're creating so much pathology in the child that's devastating the child's development that it becomes child psychological abuse. But at its core, this is spousal abuse using the child as a weapon, and this particular pattern is of the highest spousal abuse concern relative to the other ones. So, with that, I'm going to run away to other tasks and other things and return again with some other tidbit of information from Dr. Childress. So, bye bye, everybody, and take care out there.